Okay, Karen is coming now. We are waiting for you, Karen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanti 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 Om. So Namaste. Good morning, good afternoon. And we could begin with one of the questions I got here. I got a question from Karen. Can we begin with your question, Karen?
Yes,
I wrote you back. Did you see my
I
message?
did. And I have the book here
Okay.
concerning my question.
Okay. Let me see your question here. Yeah, you wrote like. Can you repeat for the group what is the? Because I would like you to contextualize it a little bit more for me.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this passage is from Chinmayananda's book, Read Daily, Live Fully. The chapter is called Uniqueness of a Man of Realization. Let's see. I don't know whether to read the whole page or just these couple paragraphs.
No, just the paragraph.
Okay. It says, a Jivan Mukta, liberated one, is dead, finished. The mystery is that his body remains to fulfill samasti parabdha, total destiny. If the master falls sick, it is because the devotees need to go through the experience of pain and service. If he dies a painful death, it is not for himself, but for the sins of others. Jesus was immaculate.
Can you just hold for a moment, please? I'm sorry,
Yes.
I apologize. Just a moment.
It might be interesting just for everybody else if you're not familiar with the book.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's a book of daily readings from Chinmayananda. So
Yeah.
it's just like a kind of a 1 or 2 page thing that we've been working through here at Carbondale. So
Well, it's very interesting, this passage. Can you step back? Can you just go back a little bit and talk about the last line about Jivan Mukta is the one who is alive, but he's basically dead, and
Okay, the mystery is that his body remains to fulfill samasti parabdha, total destiny. If the master falls sick, it is because the devotees need to go through the experience of pain and service. If he dies a painful death, it is not for himself, but for the sins of others. Jesus was immaculate. The sins he died for were samasti sins. Samasti parabdha deserved to see that kind of death for him.
yeah, it's I don't know much what to make of all of that, because it brings back this notion of Jesus dying for the sake of others, for the sin of others, because ultimately the Jivan Mukta is not concerned about his death. So but if he has to go through that kind of prabhada karma, it's more for the sake of its devotees, from what I understood, right? What is your question after all?
Yes, well, I guess my question was, how is this for the sake of others? Is it to see that we aren't just the body?
It could be, huh?
But also, you know, like for the total destiny.
Yeah, for the universal Parabdha karma is the total karma of humanity, and then if there is a figure like Ramana or Jesus and so on that dies in a dramatic kind of way, it serves not only to him himself, but there are so many people associated to these figures, you know, that it's affecting, it's impacting the Prarabdha karma of everyone, because there are a lot of people connect to these individuals, you know, to these entities. So there is a sense of collectivity, of totality of the karma. And then it's somehow, from what I understand Shimaya is saying, he lifts somehow the personal parabada of the yoni, because the yoni is just free from the parabada. Although here and there, the scripture says that for the yoni there is only parabada, because parabada is the unfoldment of one's past actions, you know. So our past actions from previous births, or actions before one got to affirm self-knowledge or moksha, or whatever we call it. So those actions, they many times they take long time or even lifetimes to fructify. So if something like that is fructifying now, you know, it has some accountability to the yoni from the time he was not a yoni, you know, before he was bound to samsara as a samsari, a spiritual samsari maybe. But you know, I mean, I have a hard time to really make some sense of those statements of Shimaya, because a lot of the time Shimaya presents things in a kind of spectacular and rich and dramatic, you know, way, you know.
Right. This is true.
That I don't know if we should take those words literally or not, you know. But because to me the Parabdha karma of yoni unfolds. That's why the scriptures say there is yet Parabdha karma for yoni, because it's the fructification, manifestation of previous karmas that until unfolding. And when to me Jesus died in that way because somehow he was into speaking his truth. You understand? And if you're not politically correct, and if you start really throwing the naked truth in the face of people who did not want to hear that, although people could be maybe have some sympathy to him, he was just being, you know, too upfront with everyone. And somehow he kept going until people had to finish him, you know, because he was really pushing it. So Osho Rajneesh is another example of someone who did something on those lines. He had this incredible rebel personality, and he was in the big mouth and talking and challenging the status quo and attacking all kinds of hypocrisy. Or he was doing that so often, and I was around him, living around his community for 10 years. Most of us, we were like pulling our heads, saying, please shut up, you're going to destroy the community, you're going to destroy everything with your big mouth, you know. But he couldn't help himself. He was just kept doing until they came in Oregon and destroyed the community, and was after him until they killed him, you know. He was killed, literally. He was poisoned during that trip that he had from the East Coast back to the Oregon in those days, you know. So why he had that miserable death? Because he pushed a bit too much. His personality, it was destiny, it was his nature. He had to talk his truth, and So I see Jesus a little bit like that, and he was getting the fructification of his actions. You know, he was there, uncompromising his truth, to say, no, it's like that. I'm not here to save anybody. I'm just to help you to understand, you know, what is beyond this life. I'm not here as a Messiah to save you from your problems here, you know. So that's how I see it, you know. And I have a hard time to understand that what Shemaiah is trying to. I mean, maybe somebody else could try to help if you have this.
Yeah, and I guess it's everybody's, all the people that were there to witness that, it was in their karma to be there to witness that, because they needed to see someone suffer and die like that, I guess.
Yeah. You see, we get attached to someone, and then that someone, you know, like Arjuna was attached to certain people on the other side of the field, you know, people that he had a relationship, a lifetime relationship and affection and so on, respect. So you get attached to someone, and then if that someone has to be destroyed and in a very, very tragic way, cruel way, so one's attachment to that person is going to impact us. You know, that event to that person due to our attachment is going to impact us. What it means to say, it says that the parabolic karma of Jesus was not his alone, you know, because there were hundreds of thousands of people, you know, so much connect to him that his death was impact so many people, you know. When Osho was dying, a lot of people were suffering. What it means to say that Osho was my karma. All the disciples he had were his karma, you know. We were karma, the karma of Osho. Osho was our karma, and everything is impact everything else in the collectiveness, you know. So I mean, in another sense, so you, Karen, is my karma. So I got in contact with you, our lives somehow crossed, and now you are my karma as a friend and as a student. And I am your karma as a friend and as a teacher, as an example, you know. So this is karma is like that, you know. So of course, people associate to Osho, to Shemaiah, or to, in this case, with Jesus. They had to cope with a karma that did not belong only to Jesus, did not belong only to Ramana. Everybody in the ashram was devastated to see Ramana, the beloved God, you know, for them die in that sense, you know. They were so attached to the body of Ramana and so on. So to use a more contemporary kind of example, no? So it ended up being a karma of everybody, you know. But
Arlindo, it reminds me of what's going on in the world right now, because George Floyd's Pravda was to be suffocated by that police officer, but it's become everybody's karma.
yeah.
The ripples are infinite.
Yeah, very well put. Yeah, all over the world, people are suffering that death. I was talking to a friend of mine from Olympia, Washington, and he was telling more in details all this situation, you know, this dramatic situation and the repercussions of Jesus. And he started crying with me over the telephone. And he's a white man, but he got so much touched and identified with that brutality, you know, and somehow he's involved and he's suffering, you know. So this is a nice example of how the karma somehow affects. So now that guy, you know, what's his name again?
George Floyd.
George Floyd. George Floyd. So we never saw him, but he ended up being our karma as well. You know, we had no idea that we are going to get a karma from him, But now he has a karma for every one of us, you know, because we all got impacted by something that was a result, that was his results, but it was not only his results, because as we know in media, somehow everything impacts everything else. You know? Very interesting.
It seems to me that everybody wants to have a reason why someone as good as Ramana would suffer, you know, and that impulse toward wanting a reason is valid because the field is so infinitely connected. There's always a reason.
Yeah.
There's no mistakes here, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have the difficult to understand the reasons for our Rabda karmas, either on a personal level or on a collective level, because we don't have Ishwara's mind, you know. I mean, Ishwara's is all known. The entire picture of this cause and effect, you know, laws, you know, he understands it all, you know, he sees it all, because he is the very knowledge that, you know, that somehow creates it, you know. He's the fabric of knowledge that allows all these laws to sustain and to operate media. Our vision is so narrow-minded, you know, it's so short-sighted. We don't understand. We have a hard time to connect the dots between our actions and our results of actions most of the time, you know, immediate results, sometimes we miss. Yeah? So just imagine to understand something on a larger picture like that, you know. People around Ramana, they could not understand why he got. And I think I shared with you or some of you that one of his disciples were recently there spreading the notion that the master got this cancer from his disciples. That was not his karma. It was his disciples' karma that was transferred to him, because people's mind is full of poison, and mind needs to be destroyed. Mind is the problem. So he was selling that notion and making people there in the audience in general feeling like, oh my God, we killed the master, you know. Which to me did not make any sense, that thought. But what do you think, Mark?
Well, when we're talking about Ramana, it reminds me, do you remember what Trudy used to say? Trudy said that she believed that he ate so much sugar and prasad during his life that it was actually sugary prasad that gave him cancer. But even if that's the case, that's still prarabdha karma, so it doesn't really make any difference whether the prarabdha karma comes from a past life or it comes from this life.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It could be as simple as that one, you know, bad diet.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. Interesting.
But like you say, Lindo, you know, with Ishvara's vision, Ishvara's got the vision from all times, forever.
Yeah.
And we as humans, we've only got this limited vision of our own lifespan.
Yeah.
And so, it's totally understandable.
And we know so little, even in terms of the laws of karma, ethic laws, and how it operates. You know, we know our vision is so limited.
Is this an opportunity to practice karma yoga again?
Absolutely.
And accept the results are Ishwara's and not our own.
Yeah, I mean, the results, the overall results. I mean, we'll see what's happening in the world. So we may think like, so how can all of this be possible? You know, and then the karma yoga attitude comes in, and then we say, okay, so I trust this order. So I know that this is an intelligent order, and even if we all have to suffer, it's what somehow we deserve. You know, it is what it is. You know, this is a system that makes no mistake. So whatever collective prarabdha karma we have is what is proper, you know, it is what is fair and correct. So this pacifies the mind every time that the mind says, no, it's not possible, you know, how can it be? Come on, Ishwara, what are you doing, Ishwara? Not long ago, I was exchanging message with Sundari, and she was putting those terms, you know, like saying, I mean, sometimes I wonder, what is Ishwara doing? He's taking away good people, you know, and keep, you know, nourishing and keeping all these terrible people, you know. So, but it's just one of those moments that we may have that we feel like there is something wrong here, you know, and then we need to correct it, you know, and see the, yeah. We have so much, I mean, we had, we have Ruth bringing up last class, this situation of Dharma and the Dharma. We have so much violation of Dharma, that we have so much cruelty and robbery and deceiving and manipulation and lies, you know. We have this unjust, unfair society that seems to be degenerating, I mean, even decline more and more. And we think like, oh my God, come on, Ishwara. Can you just bring some more balance here? So the good guys are getting away with all these things. You know? But again, we need to come back and remember ourselves, you know, remind ourselves, you know, this is all Ishwara. I have no way to judge Ishwara because I'm short-sighted, you know. I understand, I see so little, I don't have the entire picture. So as a good Kami yogi, just I have trust in the scripture. I say, okay, it's Sarah and Sarah for the best, oh, for the benefit of the total, you know. That's the point. That's what my wife reminds me from time to time. Okay. Shall we look into Ruth is with us now. Let's look into the other. So Dave, you wrote that this question that keeps coming back to you, right? So face again, is the difference between causal and subtle body. Why is there a distinction, and what, if any, consideration does the concept of causal body have in removing the veils of ignorance so knowledge may be revealed? Why is there a distinction between causal and subtle body? And what, if any, consideration does the concept of causal body have to remove the veils of ignorance so knowledge may be revealed? So what do you mean to say? You understand the causal body and the subtle body, no? The subconscious mind and the conscious mind, so in simple language. And when you say, what if any consideration about the causal body being instrumental in helping us to remove ignorance, is that what you mean to say? If ignorance can be removed by the causal body? So can you try to clarify a little bit better your question, Dave?
Well, one, I'm just thinking of the causal body as the unconscious mind, and the subtle body as the conscious mind. That's a distinction that I think I can wrap my head around, and so that's good. And then the second part then is like kind of like so what? I mean, does the causal body have any? If our objective is if we're on the means to knowledge, so if we're removing the veils of ignorance, and so how does knowing about the causal body or being aware of the unconscious mind, if you will, how does that, what does that do, or how does that help reveal knowledge?
Well, it's so Vedanta helps us to understand the connection between the causal body and the subtle body, right? So we understand the cycle. We understand that every thought, feeling, emotion, or impulse to act or say things in a certain way comes from whatsoever we have in the causal body. Okay, so we know this cycle of vasana, and then desire or fear, and then that somehow compels us to think, feel, and act in a certain way. And then this action goes into the field, and then that action is going to reinforce the vasana if we act totally moved by the tendency of doing things in that same way, or we can respond to the field, filtering or that vasana, or regulating that vasana, so that we act out in a way that we're going to offset. You say offset? Yeah, offset that vasana a little bit. We can yes, this vasana is a bit. No, I have to do something different here so that I can regulate that vasana, because I'm not okay with that vasana, because it's creating conflicting karmas for me over and over again. So we understand this relationship. The point is that the causal body, it calls the subtle body. So what it means to say, it's much more subtle than the subtle body, and it cannot be objectified by the intellect, by the ego intellect. The intellect cannot objectify, but we can understand the causal body for its effects in the subtle body. So the effects of the causal body we can witness and understand and observe in our minds. The way we feel, the way that we react emotionally, and then our tendency to think, our patterns of thoughts. So we can have a clue, a hint of what's going on in our subtle, in our causal body, in our unconscious, subconscious mind, because we see its effects. So when we come to Vedanta, we understand more clearly this relationship, and we know what we can do to somehow reprogram our vasanas to develop better vasanas and so on. So the causal body, it needs to be worked, but we worked it how? We worked it in the subtle body. You understand? Because the subtle body, the causal body is unconscious. It's just data. A lot of impressions, mental, emotional impressions that are there, that they just pop up every time we find ourselves in a situation that resembles somehow some past experience that was somehow filed, and kept there with those bits and pieces of mental, emotional impressions. So that is going to tell us how to respond next time a similar situation presents itself to us, right? So we can see that this causal body, it can be worked by the way I experience its effects in my subtle body, and then I can correct my causal body only by the way I act, because my actions are going to impact my vasanas. It's my actions that are going to impact my vasanas. So the point is that the spiritual growth, spiritual development can only be made can only be exercised and in the subtle body, in the intellect, not only, and in the awakened state. When we dream, we have no way to process karma and bring about spiritual growth. When we dream as well, our intellectual faculties is very, very vague and distorted, and we don't have the same kind of intellectual power to really process. And moreover, we are not really interact with the field. We are just recycling the impressions that we got from our interaction with the field. It repeats itself somehow, although there are a lot of hints that we can take from dreams. Ramji, when he was young, he did a lot of dream work that, according to him, was very helpful to him to understand better his subconscious mind and his vasanas. No? So, what else can we say?
I mean, just a kind of a real world example to me is if my senses, if I take in a lot of violence, for instance, whether it be television or news or whatever, that impacts. That's a choice I make in my actions, is choosing to allow that into my consciousness. But at night, then I may have very violent dreams, and that represents kind of the causal body. So what the actions I take in my subtle body that influences or impacts my causal body, which is what happens when I'm unconscious or when I'm sleeping.
Yeah. So, and then we have to be careful as well, even with the news, because there is so much fake news to begin with, and then violent news, because violence sells better than anything. So it's, I tell you, it's quite a challenge to live in samsara and keep a clear sattvic mind, So that's why Ramji tends to say, no, don't tell me anything bad that's happening to the world, because I want to keep my mind free. I just keep my mind on. I mean, he has a vasana for Mr. Trump, of course. But besides that one, he does not want to know much of any other thing, So because the more we expose our minds to the movie industry with all its violence and a lot of cruelties. And have you noticed that when we watch movies, the movies are all about violation of Dharma? Have you noticed that? The movies are all about people being nasty to one another, trying to get away with doing things that are not good for the field. It's all about that, and some other people trying to conspire against one another, and everybody start trying to step on each other's head to grow and become someone important. It's all about that. We keep brainwashing ourselves watching all these movies. There's not much we can really enjoy in the television nowadays. The news are mostly fake news. And the movies are mostly a sort of brainwashing, violent programs, that leaves all these impressions in our mind. Yeah, I remember when I was young, I'm talking about 34 years ago, it was relatively easy to go in the store and try to find one of those DVDs or something about movies, those stores with all those. I go in the romantic session, and there was a lot of people that were romantic movies. Try to go in Netflix nowadays and look for romantic movies. You can find romantic movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and finito. They don't make it anymore. Isn't it interesting? Love and so on. Now it's about music. Look at the music we produce nowadays compared to the old days music. Big change. Better we keep our mind in Vedanta. That's what my wife tell me again and again. My guru here. I'm the one who likes to see what's happening in the world, and then I go there to tell her, I say, no, don't tell me anything of that. Don't want to know anything. So, anything else, Dave? Anybody else? Or we change the subject?
Going back to that last subject about consuming the news, the Buddhists talk about mindfulness, and mindful consumption is one aspect of their lives. So when they say this, it's not just about how much food and what food you consume. It's also about what you consume mentally. So don't consume anything which is going to disturb your state of mind, anything which is going to create rajas and tamas in your mind. And this is a good point to remember for us who are trying to create sattvic minds.
Totally. Yeah. Totally, yeah. To regulate our diet, media diet. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We get into all this collective emotional state, you see that there are millions of people involved with a certain emotional situation that's going on, and then everybody gets tuned in, and everybody experiences that kind of mental, emotional thing, Totally.
Well, then isn't there some, I struggle with this, some dharmic responsibility to the environment as well, and the environment being natural, political, social, intellectual.
Yeah.
And so I've been wondering if and I hope you can speak to this, if the proper response isn't just seeing what Ishwara presents and moment by moment trying to do the dharmic karma, but I do feel that part of that dharma is being responsible to understand your environment and to act in your environment responsibly. So it's always a push me, pull you,
Yeah. I have this situation, similar situation like that going on in our Brazilian group, because there are so many adversities, and people do not want to hear because it disturbs one's mind, But sometimes you need to understand what's coming so that you are not caught by surprise, and not only so that you can try to correct something in the field and to say no for this, no for that, you understand? So because I have this tendency of getting involved and say no, I was a rebel when I was young. So although that I have my Swadharma as someone who propagates these teachings and self-knowledge, so I have also this aspect of my appearance nature as someone who wants to uphold Dharma, and say, come on, no, this is not possible. And every time I go into that role, my mind gets agitated as well, a bit agitated. It's not as much, it can be easily correct. I don't lose a night of sleep or something like that, but it impacts the mind because everything in Micca is impact, The only thing that does not suffer any impact is our conscious existence. So it all depends, Lynn, on the temperament of each one of us, I see a lot of things happening in the world nowadays that, in my vision, it requires that we pay attention and we stand up and say, hey, no, this is my position, this is my position. Because if we don't do that, if we don't exercise our free will, our civil liberties, it's going to be taken away from us. So if everybody stays, oh no, I don't care, and then our politicians, our representatives, and then they can get away with doing what they want, and we may regret because things may come to a point that the field is so much a fact that the Dharma field, that this Vedic culture may be compromised once for all, And so it's a fine line, and each one of us, we need to look into our own temperament, our own swadharma, Some people, I call them, they are the Arjunas, that are going to the field and oppose Duryodhana and say, no, I need support, I need to protect Dharma here, for my own good, the good of the next generations, and so on. This is my political personality, and so it's a question that each one of us have to look. If you are totally into Vedanta and you don't care for that, it's okay. But just imagine if things get as so bad that maybe in the future we cannot even do all Vedanta anymore, because the environment is going to may become so disturbed, So it's a very fine line. There are moments that Krishna tells Arjuna, no, there's no way you have to fight, and makes no mistake. Arjuna was someone who was meant to fight. You understand? But we see certain movies. Sometimes we see in the movies, we see these kingdoms or this small village, and they are going to be invaded by the other village, and the other army is stronger. And then what we see in the movies, that the soldiers and the generals, they just how you say, they call the entire population, even householders and wives and everybody grabs something, because now it's a question of really, if we don't stand up and fight, we are dead. So we rather fight. So there are certain circumstances that we need to look. You understand? Because, but it's a very, very touchy subject. I have been trying to introduce these notions in my group in Brazil, and I lost the sympathy of some people because nobody wants to hear all these things. So I stopped talking about these things. Right, Mark?
Yeah, there's a time when we have to stand up for what actually we believe, and we have to, if necessary, stand up and fight. I tend to agree with you with regards to that. But like you say, it's a very delicate subject, because most people, they don't want to face this. They don't want to deal with it, especially spiritual people in a way.
Spiritual people. A lot of people, they hide behind their spirituality and say, no, this is all media and so on, and I don't deal with it.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. Yeah, the Gita, we had Krishna telling Arjuna, go and fight, because this is not real. So there is no blood, there is nobody dying, nobody was born. But yet he was saying, but fight, this is not real, but fight, And then later on he starts saying, no, this need fought, and there is a certain reality here, and we cannot let the Dharma go down, and so. And then he had different arguments. So in one end or the other end, he was the common denominator fight, But again, Krishna was a soldier, warrior, so he was meant to be there to fight, But in extreme situations, I believe that most one needs to fight. But yet, we can only fight things to the degree that we see things that need to be fought,
we've kind of gone full circle back to Jesus again, and Jesus was crucified for actually standing up for his truth.
Yeah.
So the Sanger's gone full circle today.
Yeah.
Started like that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So how are you doing, Claudio?
One question, Arlinda.
Please.
Okay. It's a completely different subject. The other day, I believe I heard James or somebody say, I might have even been in my dream, I'm not sure anymore, that different organs in the body, basically, as a human, we're not under...
Can you please repeat what James said?
Yeah,
Because it's...
Well, I'm trying to formulate it in my mind into a question. Basically, different organs can be under the influence of different gunas at the same time. For example, my mind can be sattvic, but my stomach can be rajasic. Or basically, I was under the impression that if our mind was sattvic, we were pretty much completely sattvic throughout our whole jiva being. But I heard it said that, you know, that all the different organs are under different influences at all the time. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't have much to say about that, Mark, but I can understand that sometimes you can have the physical body active, you know, very, very active, and the mind is tamasic, or vice versa, you know. But to go to the extreme of making associations or in respect to different organs of the body, you know, I mean, I know that when my digestion is doing very well now since a long time. I'm so glad to the Lord, thankful to the Lord. But when my digestion was tamasic, usually my mind was tamasic and my physical body was tamasic, for example, you know, that's my general experience. You know? So my general experience is that when my mind is tamasic, the body is tamasic, and when the body is tamasic, the mind is tamasic. So but it's enough to see when the body is sick, it becomes physically tamasic, and the mind follows as well, because the body mind is one integrate organism, you know. So I tend more to see on those lines.
Yeah, that's how I've been visioning it as well. So I was surprised the other day when I heard it said that, you know, that everything had its own influence all the time.
Yeah, Ramji has put a lot of work in this guna book, and he says that it's for the first time there is a guna book that goes into details of these three energies impacting our life and our mind, our feelings, our actions, and so on. So it's good work, definitely. And but I don't tend to go too much crazy about guna management, because in the end, the bottom line is that we can only really effectively manage our gunas by the way we act, you know. So the notion of observing the gunas in your causal body or in your subtle body and correcting it or manipulating or managing it, it's very subtle. I appreciate very much the notion of understanding the gunas and discriminating the gunas. The gunas are the building blocks of our vasanas. So we can understand the vasanas, and then we can say, I'm not my vasanas. And then if you want to go and speculate or examine your vasanas, we're going to go to the classifications. There are three kinds of vasanas: sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic vasana. You understand? So that is good work. So you are saying this vasana is a real rajasic vasana. This vasana is a real tamasic vasana. And what happened when I engaged this vasana? So it happened like this. and then you connect the dots, and then you say, no, I want to regulate these vasanas because I want to have more sattva in the equation, in the mixture, you know. So understanding the nature of our actions as well. Our actions, they are either sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. You understand? Our words are either rajasic. We can classify in the last chapter, or in the 17th chapter or 18th chapter of the Gita. So Krishna went wild, classifying everything into the three gunas, you know. He would just classify everything. Our values, they are either rajasic, tamasic. So this is good work. You just look, you know, at the nature of our vasanas, of our emotions, of our thoughts, of our words, of our actions, and so on. You know? And but I see that Ramji, he goes into nuance of the three gunas, you know, very a lot of nuance that I don't relate much to those for different reasons. I never felt much attracted to this notion of guna management, because I mean I met a lot of people that got so excited, and I saw them a little bit like misled to think that they can really manage the gunas, you know, they can control the gunas and so on. I'm managing my guna. No? So good luck with that.
Arlindo, do you think that maybe he meant that knowledge can purify the intellect? So there's more clarity there underlying all its behaviors. But then the senses are still tied up to the elements, and all that stuff can go on automatically as the sort of Ishwara Shristi. But you can have created a more stable sattvic intellect.
Yeah,
and
I totally,
that other stuff can go on.
Yeah, I totally believe, and I like to propagate the notion that the most important thing for every seeker of moksha is to cultivate and develop more and more sattvic body, sattvic mind, intellect. You know, we need to, and that is something more tangible. So we want our minds to be sattvic, and how we're going to do that? By understanding our reactions. Our reactions that they are vasanas, they are just becoming our thoughts, feelings, and emotions and tendencies in the subtle body, and then immediately realize if this is a rajasic, tamasic, or you know, tendency that is going to produce more and more rajasic or tamasic, you know, vasana, you know, natured vasanas, and therefore I'm going to have a more rajasic or tamasic subtle body or mind or intellect. So we can make those determinations and then we begin regulating those vasanas, because we can only develop a sattvic mind by understanding, you know, the connection between the causal, the subtle, and the physical realm. And then, I mean, in reality, once we understand this connection, we need to begin by doing an inventory of my values, you know, and I want to hold to sattvic values, you know, not rajasic. Rajasic is ambition and more. I want this, I want that. Tamasic is just like, oh no, I don't want to play this game of samsara. I am out of here. I'm going to, you know, going to be in front of TV and drinking beer. So we have to see our lifestyle, our values, and then we have to do what? We need to organize our lives. We need to simplify our lives, you know. We cannot be too rajasic, because that's going to stimulate more and more rajasic vasanas, and then I'm going to have a rajasic intellect to read the field and to respond again. So we need to begin with our values, and then our lifestyle, you know, and then from there we can observe the connection between my vasanas, my thoughts, emotions, and my actions, and then I can see which actions are going to regulate and develop, you know, and more sattvic intellect. So we need to do this inner work to understand what kind of association with people or kinds of actions or kind of entertainment that we do, you know, what I'm doing here and what effect what I'm doing is having in my mind, because I'm a seeker of moksha. This is my primary swadharma. So I need to connect these associations I have with people, things, place, and knowledge, and entertainment and information, so that I preserve my sattva, because my goal is moksha, and I need to have a more sattvic mind. But if I decide no, I'm going to go and join Arjuna, I'm going to fight a war. So I need to be. I mean, the generals need to have sattva because they need to create a strategy of the war. But overall, we need to have a lot of rajas to fight a war. You understand? So it depends a lot on our swadharma, our lifestyle. But most important thing for us is to develop, cultivate, develop, and preserve to the best of our ability a sattvic mind, and yet respecting our swadharma. You know, following our swadharma. Anything else, Lynn, on that topic? How about you, Claudio? You have anything to say? Anything to ask? Anything to add?
Yeah, I want to say only that everything is okay. Now it's a year that I am in Vedanta.
Hey, happy birthday to you.
And you know, we start together in November, but I start to see videos about Vedanta in 1 year ago, and I'm happy because, you know, I start to have the picture more or less. It start to be clear, you know, the picture, and so I'm enjoying it, happy about that, and thank you very much for your help, and of the group, of course. So this is for the moment what I have to say today.
Good. Nice.
So,
thank you. We love having you here. Right? Anybody else? Ronaldo and Bruce. Ronaldo, you want to say something? You want to share something or ask something? Add something?
Não, tá tudo tranquilo, tá tudo tranquilo. A única coisa, é meio esotérico, mas aquela questão lá do karma, né, do Yanni, o que eu tenho, pelos estudos anteriores que eu tenho feito, uma coisa mais aprofundada, quando o ser nasce, ele vem já com um molde etérico, que é o corpo que dá o comando para formar o corpo físico. Ele vem com um molde etérico onde já estão previstas todas as deficiências ou os karmas que o corpo vai ter, tá? Então, baseado nisso, mesmo que o cara esteja iluminado, entre aspas, como isso já está fixado no corpo físico e já é o molde etérico que já vem com isso, não tem como ele não passar pelos seus karmas. Não sei se eu consegui ser claro.
Sim.
É como que Quando você desencarna, você recolhe tudo aquilo que você, todas as energias que você equilibrou, desequilibrou. Quando você volta, na hora de formar, isso está potencial no corpo causal, o teu próprio corpo físico vai se formar em função dessas deficiências que você cometeu em vidas anteriores. Ou seja, mesmo que nessa vida você esteja iluminado, o que você fez no passado você vai ter que recolher, porque já está marcado no teu corpo etérico que vai criar o molde no corpo físico, que é o molde do corpo físico.
Sim. Sim. Well said. Yeah, Ronaldo is just bringing some more spice to the conversation about Ramana and Jesus and going through certain experience or certain physical debilities or weakness or deaths, you know, like Ramana had the cancer. He was just reminding that we all, the causal body, the etheric body, you know, is what is going to mold the body-mind construct. So when we come, we have all those elements that are already imprinted in our causal body that it's going to constitute this physical body, and the physical body is already there, standing like bang, you have this and this and that, and these are all due to the vasanas that you came with. So those vasanas are already determining the kind of body. So it's easy to see. Well, every one of us have a physical body, and we often we have different aspects of our bodies that we already buy. We are born already with some insufficiency, you know, or weakness. So I was born with a weak digestive system, for example. Somebody is born with a weak liver, you know. So we see it very often, you know, some of these things that we bring with us. I mean, we can relate to genetics, but genetics is very close, intimate with past lives as well. You know, I mean, if you look from the scientific standpoint, you can call it genetics, but from the spiritual Vedic standpoint, we call that past incarnation or vasanas that, you know, associate with that soul that that's in this lifetime is going to bring about. Is going to find. You see, we think, genetic I'm getting from my dad and mom. No, it's my vasanas are going to determine my dad, my mother, the environment, the time, the culture, you know, and that is going to constitute my physical body. So in the end, vasanas is what somehow determine what kind of body and what kind of death sometime we will encounter. You know, I don't buy that much this idea that everything is predetermined, because if everything was absolutely predetermined, our free will would give us no opportunity for us to change the directions of our lives, you know. So if everybody is born out of ignorance, and then there is no way for us to find self-knowledge and moksha, so our free will is still gives us the possibility to change things around, or to sometimes in certain language they say you change the timeline of your life, you know, you just take another road, another avenue, and then when you see, so everything is possible because we are not just a complete reproduction of our past vasanas. We have the ability to impact our vasanas and change the imprinting, imprint of our. So that's more or less that's my take. Is Ruth with us today? Yes. She's shy.
I am.
Yeah, she is. She did not do all the makeup this morning, so she does not want to show up in the video.
Exactly. I'm in my pajamas and I'm very Tomasic today.
Oh, I see. Okay, good to hear your voice.
Our swimming pool opened yesterday and I swam for
Oh,
the first time in many months. So I'm fatigued from it.
no, I can imagine. I'm glad
Yeah.
that you have a swimming pool open again. I hope you not swim with a mask.
No, no.
Good, good, good. So anything else, my friends? Hmm.
I would just like to say, Arlindo, that I really enjoy these Thursdays with everybody. It's lovely. Thank you for
So you enjoy
hosting.
the Thursdays more than the Mondays?
No, they're just very different, and I
Mm.
very seldom have a chance to sit with other people of a similar mind to mine. So it's
Yeah, and this is more dynamic because we interact on Mondays. It's just about class, you know? So here we have more exchanging. So it's nice. Yeah, I enjoy these sessions as well. Yeah, and I enjoy our group. I enjoy our group big time. So we somehow we got used with this virtual kind of lifestyle. No? Now even Ramji is getting used. He told me, "Oh man, it's so great. I don't need to go anywhere. I just stay in my place and I can, do my things." So we're getting used to it and learn to appreciate it. You know.
Is Sundari still in South Africa?
As far as I know, yes.
Huh, it's a long time.
Yeah, long time. Okay.
I think they're still on lockdown, South
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah, I think things are not looking very good there.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I also want to thank you all. Thank you for your contributions, your donations. They help me and I appreciate it very much so. Thank you all. Okay, dokie. So if we have nothing more to say, we could either begin gossiping or we could just call the satsang and say goodbye. Om Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. So we meet again next Monday. Ishwara willing.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks, Arlindo.
Ciao.
God bless everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.